The other one I got was DCKO, guys. Now this is where I'm more excited because I've always been a DC fan, and these others that I only got them because they were like versus comic books, and I do get a lot of those because I am a fan of fights. I'm like a boxing fan and MMA, and so I'm always constantly, and I also like fighting games. So I'm always constantly thinking, what would happen if this guy faces that guy, if that guy faces this guy. Even when it comes to animals, I'm always thinking, gorilla versus bear, white shark versus megalodon, or stuff like that. I'm always thinking in versus senses. So, needless to say, I enjoy um, manga because manga always has tournament arcs, and tournament arcs pin certain styles versus certain styles, or certain characters versus certain characters. And I've always thought that's one of the strong suits of manga, especially like Shonen Jump and stuff like that, was that they always had like a tournament arc because they knew that the fans like that. A lot of people like that. It's not just me. A lot of people think that way. Um, and I like DC because DC is learning from manga, and from stuff like Naruto, Dragon Ball Z, One Piece, uh, My Hero Academia. So many of these that I just mentioned, and so many more. All of these have tournament arcs, um, and DC is like, yes, let's do that. Let's make a a tournament arc to where these heroes have to face villains, and have to face each other to see who's the best of the best. And so in DCKO, what's going on is that, and it's connected to the Absolute Universe, which is something I personally like. What's going on is that Darkseid pretty much controls everything, and he controls the past, present, and the future, and he's such a monumental force, that there needs to be somebody that balances the force to the other direction, kind of like a force of good, that counters this evil dark side. So basically, a light side, or a light force or something like that. Um, because in the way things are right now, dark side controls everything. Everything's gonna go into chaos, and everything's gonna be destroyed. So they need this balance, and in order to figure out, or in order to make that happen, all of these heroes have to fight each other, and one of them is going to create that pole that pulls to the other direction. That's kind of like what I understood from it. And so yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be definitely fun. The first issue, you know, um, you kind of get into why they have to do it. They explain why they have to do the things they have to do, and why Darkseid is such a threat, and why they're doing this tournament. So you kind of get the whole explanation in the first issue. Um, and you also the thing that made me laugh was that Batman. And this is a spoiler, but by now, if you like comic books, you're gonna know. Batman dies in the first issue. um, which if you think about it, is the most realistic thing that could happen, dude. Like he's a human being, dude. Like he has no powers. He's just a guy, a rich guy with gadgets and shit. And the dude gets eliminated in the first round. He was like, it's funny because it reminded me of um was it Avengers in games or something like that, where Spider-Man's dying and he's like, what is it, Stark or Mr. Stark? And then Batman didn't say that. He went out like a boss. He was like, remember what I said, Clark. And then Superman was like, yeah, I remember. And that's it. Um, but yeah, that was pretty cool. Also, I don't know if I have a picture on here or anything. Oh, here it goes. This is one of them. Superman has these brass knuckles that are infused by all of the suns in the universe, or something like that, which amplifies his power and makes him way stronger. His punches way stronger, which is I think is badass that they just added that little feature for him. You know, and it starts off with this. By the way, this is like the first or second page starts off like this. Um, so yeah, man, this is gonna be crazy. I love tournament arcs. I like that DC, is learning from other styles of comic books, like the Japanese style, and they're kind of taken from them and evolving, and that's what it's gonna take to take these characters to the next level, because a lot of people want the same old, and that's not gonna make these characters evolve and continue to the next generation. But at the same time, you don't want to force things and do it without some tact and without some actual creativity and good writing. And I really enjoyed this first issue, and I can't wait to actually tomorrow it should release the second issue, and I'm gonna be there to pick it up early. But anyways, before I get to this one, because this one's gonna be easy to talk about. It's very simple. Of why I picked it up. But before that, this DCKO is connected to another comic book that I also picked up called Batman Fight Night. Um, and it's pretty much Batman versus Batman. And it turns out that Batman, when he dies in this tournament, like he died in the first issue, he actually doesn't die. He has to go and fight in another universe. I couldn't really understand it, but it just turns out that nobody knows that this tournament happened where he ends up. He ends up in another um timeline or something like that, and he doesn't exist anymore in that timeline. He's like imprisoned or something like that, and he has to fight the new Batman, and they have like a they have everything under control, and Nightwing is the Batman. And um so Batman, the Bruce Wayne Batman, finds out that Nightwing Batman, um which is Dick, what is it, Dick Grayson, is Batman in this timeline. And he's like, "Yo, what's going on? I'm trying to figure out where I'm at, And then Dick Grayson, he's like, "Nah, fuck you. I don't like you or whatever." And he's trying to find out what's going on. Anyways, they get in a fight. They're fighting each other, and so and I just like the whole fighting thing, because a lot of times, like, there's not enough like action going on. And I like how DC is kind of like with DCKO and Fight Night. What's happening is that, like I said, DC is learning from stuff like Street Fighter and all of these platforms that are becoming popular around the world. Um, and the people want to see the fights. Basically, is what I'm trying to say. People want to see the brawling. They want to see the action. And so, anyways, Batman is losing to Nightwing, and he admits that Nightwing is probably a better Batman, especially when it comes to fighting. He flows, and he's really not thinking in there. He's just in Wu Wei, as the or Wu Wei, as the martial artists would say, or Ultra Instinct, as Dragon Ball Z people would say. And Batman is more analytical when he fights. He's more like, he's kind of thinking in there, like, okay, he's gonna do this now, I'm gonna do that, kind of like Sherlock Holmes. Um, and yeah, he admires Nightwing because he's more in a flow state. He's not really thinking. Um, but anyways, he's fighting or whatever. And he finally finds out that Dick Grayson, the reason he hates him, and the reason he's so mad at Bruce is because Bruce killed all the other Robins. And the reason he killed all the other Robins was because he thought that there could only be one Batman. And he didn't want to let any of the other Robins be Batman because it came down to the point to where he had to pass down the mantle to a Robin, and he didn't want to do that, and he killed the other ones, and that's where the story ends. And it kind of left in a cliffhanger, which I love, by the way, because we need to get back to the cliffhanger. I think that's what makes comic book great. So that's what makes episodes in general great. And even movies sometimes. Um, but anyways, moving on to the other comic book that I purchased, which is Darkstalkers versus Street Fighter. Darkstalkers versus Street Fighter, I got simply because of this cover art, and there's several different cover arts. But I got this one because I don't know. I just thought it just looked good. Um, and also I like Charlie Nash. Charlie Nash is my probably like my one of my favorite Street Fighter characters. Even though he's gotten killed like what, like 3 times or something like that by Bison, and then he comes back, and then he's dead, and then he comes back and says he doesn't make any sense. And by the way, he's gonna come back again from what I hear. I remember there was an interview with Nakayama-san, and they asked him, will Charlie come back, and he pretty much said yes. Uh, so I can't wait. One of my favorite, and but anyways, that's why I got it. I got it strictly because of the cover. I wasn't gonna read the comic book, but I ended up reading it anyways. Um, it's pretty much it's funny because Chicago, there's a lot of stuff going on in Chicago, as you guys know, in the real world, and in this comic book, it's kind of happening as well. It's weird. I don't know if they're doing it on purpose or not. Maybe they are, because comic books, Street Fighter not so much, because Street Fighter is not has never been a political game, or even in the comic books they've never been about politics. They're more about like fighting, and also weirdly sexual in a way. Street Fighter's always been that way, by the way. Like it's weird that Street Fighter is one of the most like open-minded when it comes to like sex and and just like your sexuality, which is, it's so weird, right? Because you got Marissa and what's the it's Marissa and shit, I forgot. They're supposed to be like married or something like that. It's just like a lesbian couple. And then you got the rumors that Zangief is supposed to be gay. Um, they had the first transgender character with Poison. So it's before, by the way, before the whole LGBT thing. This was way back in the 90s. A lot of this stuff, except for the Marissa thing. Marissa's Street Fighter 6. But what I'm trying to say, it's like it's kind of weird that Street Fighter, it's like one of those crazy things. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Ryu is like, he doesn't even have sex. He just doesn't like anybody. He just wants to be by himself or whatever. Because when it comes you always want to figure out, if is it Chun-Li, because some people think Ryu likes Chun-Li because of the early, Street Fighter series, where Chun-Li and Ryu kind of have a thing in those episodes. But that was way early on. That was before he even had his headband. Now, in the future, the only person that Rio really has any type of contact with that's a female is I mean, not Cammy, Sakura. So is it gonna be Sakura that Rio likes? It could be, but a lot of people are saying that Rio doesn't really um function that way. He doesn't really care. He doesn't really um he doesn't feel sexual attraction for anything, which is crazy. If that's the case. Um, I'm leaning towards maybe he's with Sakura. You know, but who knows? But in this episode, Darkstalkers versus Street Fighter. Um, what does it say? Dark Love. Um, Chicago's under attack by underground, not underground, beasts from the underworld or whatever, from hell, pretty much from hell. And Charlie Nash, um, is helping Chicago fight, and not only that, but he's telling them to fight against these beasts or whatever. And he riles up the people, and he tells them, "Hey, you got to fight back. We're not gonna take it. No, we're not gonna take it." And then he pretty much gives everybody a speech, and everybody gets hyped up and like, yeah, we're gonna fight against this beast. We're not gonna take it anymore or whatever. It's kind of like a revolutionary type thing that's going on in Chicago, that rising up against these evil demons or whatever. And so Cammy, she likes the speech so much that she just jumps all over Nash and he starts kissing him. Um, and yeah, and it's kind of weird at the beginning because I'm like, what's going on? Was this a thing for a long time? Has this been a thing? But then Rose is watching them, like, and you know how Rose be peeking on people all the time, um, and with this like magic ball or whatever that she has. She's a seer. She's like a card reader, and she's psychic. So she's always like, I don't know if you guys seen Street Fighter Alpha, and even in the game, she's always peeking on people, and she's always like, hey, what are you doing? Like creeping and shit. And she's doing the same thing here, and she's seeing them from this like I think it's like she's doing water divination, and she could see him through there. At least that's what I remember. Not, I gotta read it again. And then she's seeing what's going on through there, um, and these other girls are with her as well, looking through this, kind of like a magical screen that they could see what's going on with Cammy and and Charlie Nash, and what's going on in Chicago or whatever. And Rose says, I think that Charlie Nash has these weird powers of persuasion, and it's affecting everybody. Because not only does Cammy um, pretty much fall in love with Charlie Nash and his speech, but the people rally around him and they want to do what he says. And the girls that are there with Rose also want to fight with Charlie and for Chicago, and it starts like this beef around them, and they're all, so pretty much Charlie Nash is making all of these women moist. That's kind of what I understood what's going on. I mean, what do you want me to say? I'm That's what they're saying in the comic book. I'm not saying it. That's what they're saying. But that's pretty much the whole thing. It's like, Chicago's under attack, rise up and fight, pretty much. Um, but anyways, guys, Absolute Evil, right? It was a one shot. It was a one shot. I thought there was gonna be more, but I looked it up online. It was just a one shot. And Absolute Evil, is pretty much, it's kind of like what would happen in the real world, in my opinion. if we had a Justice League or an Avengers. It would be just all of the evil people uniting. It's kind of like what's happening right now. You guys remember when Elon Musk said that he was, or not Elon Musk, Kanye said that he was going to unite all of the geniuses of the world, and that it was going to be Trump, Elon Musk, and all these other guys uniting together to quote unquote save the world. And I mean, it's happening. It's not what he thought was going to happen, but it's happening. There's a lot of people uniting together um, in the world to do what they're gonna do. But what are you gonna do? You can't do nothing about it. But this is pretty cool. You guys should definitely check it out. I do want to talk about it, but I think that I think that it's better if you guys just go look at it, because it's gonna be spreading around all of the absolute universe and all of the regular universe of DC. This is gonna affect everybody, in my opinion. But this was a one shot, but it was also, it's gonna affect, like I said, it's gonna affect every universe, because what's going on is that the Joker, Ra's al Ghul, and all of these other villains are going to unite together to stop the heroes, which in this universe they're the villains. Everything's fixed. Everything's flipped. It's kind of like our universe. Our heroes are villains, and our villains are heroes. This is why they don't. By the way, this is why a lot of people don't like the absolute universe, because it's a little bit too real, and it speaks too much to what's going on in our society today, which comic books have always done. Um, but the thing is that the people that grew up on these comic books, they become old and bitter now. Like when I was young, my parents, not both of them, but mainly my mother, she would think everything was the devil. Pokemon was the devil. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were the devil. Everything was the devil, because if he had pointy ears, that's the devil. If Batman had horns, he's the devil. It's like everything it was the devil. And everything was evil. And the only thing you could watch, the only thing I was allowed to watch when I was very young was wrestling for some reason, and cowboy movies, because those things weren't evil. But yet you have people shooting each other, shooting Indians everywhere, Mexicans. And then in wrestling, it's like guys with underwear sweating on each other, and like, so it's what we were allowed, but it was all violence anyways. I mean, so anyways, it's my point is this: when we were young, we had stuff like Captain Planet, even though it was reruns, right? Captain Planet, Care Bears, um, stuff like this. Superman, Superman was a good guy. Like, he was a legit good guy that cared about everybody, cared about everything, wanted to save the world, did everything in his power to save the world. And if one person would die, you lose his shit and cry, and you know what I mean? Like, so we came from a generation that cared about the environment, that cared about each other, that wanted people to do well, that cared about even the smallest child among us. We wanted to care, and we wanted to make the world a better place. But now we grow up, and we've turned into our parents. A lot of us have turned into our parents. We become better. Um, we think that women don't belong in movies or in action roles. Some people think that they should be in the kitchen and they shouldn't even vote. I mean, it's crazy out here. We've become the old people in the porch complaining about everything being the devil. Um, but I think I'm still a kid at heart. I still haven't fallen prey to to being old and bitter and afraid of everybody and afraid of everything around the corner. Um, and maybe that's why I like the absolute universe. Who knows? Maybe it doesn't have anything to do with that. I think it is political, but it's not that political. There's a lot of things in here that they're just good. They're just good writing. Um, and so yeah, so I still haven't checked out Wonder Woman. I want to do it because the Wonder Woman is the least controversial, and it's the one that people like the most. Batman is the second least controversial, and is the one that people kind of like as equally as Wonder Woman. But for me personally, I've heard a lot about Absolute Wonder Woman even before I even heard about Batman. Batman is just now picking up steam because a lot of the supervillains that he's facing are, crazy for a guy like Batman who's just a human. I mean, these villains are like crazy, crazy. The other thing is that he's not rich. He's not poor, but he's not rich either. Um, so, but the one that has the least amount of love and has the most to say is Superman, and that's always been the case. But the times aren't right for Superman. That's all I gotta say. It's just not a good time to be a person from another planet, and definitely not in the absolute universe. Um, but I like the changes that they've made. I actually have all of the absolute Supermans up to like 7. And for Batman I have all the way down to 13, and 14 is about to be released. I think on the 29, I believe. So I'm gonna definitely gonna go check that one out. But um, but Superman, his cape kind of talks to him. It's kind of like an AI, and it protects him, and it has like it's infused with AI, but it's an AI that emulates, I believe his either his mother or his father, or both. I'm not really sure about it because I kind of skimmed through the collection because I bought the collection. Um, but a lot of people just don't like that they're talking about classism in this one, and about how the government is treating people and stuff like that. And you know Superman, he's always been based around Samson. I don't know if you guys know this. Samson from the Bible, or from the Jewish Bible, which is the Torah, I think, or the Talmud. Um, that's what the S stands for. He's a crypto symbol for Samson. And but the thing is, like in this iteration of him, I think he's more like Elijah than Samson, because Elijah, when he was around in his days, he was going against the Israeli government, and he had a mantle. In fact, that's where you get the whole mantle thing from. You get it from Elijah. He had a mantle, and then when he left, he kind of dropped his cape, and he gave it to his apprentice, whose name similar to him, Elijah and Elijah or something like that. I don't know. And so he gave it to him, and he got it infused with his power. So that's where we get passing down the mantle from. Um, but anyways, I compare this Superman more like to Elijah because of that, because there's more emphasis on his cape, and there's also a fire behind him, and Elijah is, from what I remember from the Bible, he is a prophet that fire represents him very well. Fire, the fiery fire from heaven, represents him very well. So And it's just my opinion, guys. That's what I see. I think this Superman is embodying Elijah rather than Samson. Um, Superman was created by Jewish people, guys, and it was created to um to show the experience of an immigrant in America, and and what it's like to be an immigrant in America, especially what it's like to be a Jew in the world. Which Jews always believe themselves to be strangers in the world because they never really had a home, and they were kicked out of a lot of places. So, that is gonna be it for today, guys. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you guys later.